Hey guys, before we start, a quick shout out to Alpha Dog Nutrition for sponsoring this podcast. Alpha Dog products are now available at dusupply.com, and you can use code ALPHADOG15 at checkout for 15% off and a credit for free shipping to try it yourself. Now let's get you to your podcast.
We're live, Otis.
Okay.
You were live.
Anyway, no.
I'm here tonight with Mr. Ottis Lewellen and Chris Watson. And I've been talking to you, Otis, for several years now, haven't I?
Oh, yeah.
And then Otis is someone I'd always heard about who hunted here in New Mexico, hunted lions with, you've hunted with Mike Root. You hunted with Orville Fletcher. Who else here in New Mexico?
Oh, goodness, I don't know. But, I started up there by Taos when I moved up in that country. But mainly, my big hunt was really with Orville Fletcher. That's when I learned to hunt bear and lion, really. I mean, I did some, but when I met Fletcher, he was, Fletcher, I was accommodating. I fit Fletcher's pant real good, I'd moved down there at Bernardo, and I was working on cleaning up a big farm there, and it used to be a shooting preserve. So I had dog kennels and a hunting lodge, and I had a new pickup and a new trailer and lots of pasture and a couple of good mules, and nice kennels and stuff. So I fell right into his plan, and but anyway, we went hunting, and of course, we drove my truck, and I pastured all the livestock. But some people pay to go to college, stuff like that. But anyway, Fletcher was, as far as I've ever met, Fletcher was the finest lion hunter that I've ever been around. Cantankerous old devil, kind of hard. You had to be pretty thick skinned to be around him.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'll tell you how I really got in. I had dogs since I was a kid, and I had dogs when I lived up at Taos. But I was like everybody else. I had some dogs. I came to New Mexico from Oklahoma, and I had two good blue tick dogs, good coon dogs. And it took me all fall up there to get them to run a bear. I mean, I'd take them to the berry patches and the choke cherries and raspberries. I put my hand on piles of bear crap that was warm to the touch, and I couldn't sick them on it. They wouldn't run. Finally, one day, they stumbled into one or something.
Whoop. Oh, no. We're just getting to the good part of the story, and he freezes up.
I know. My internet ain't very good up here where I'm at. I'm deer hunting right now. So
yeah, Chris is deer hunting. And, of course, I'm sitting here in my office. Oh, no. Mr. Otis froze.
Did we lose him?
I think we lost him. Whoop, he's gone. He'll be back. He'll be back. He'll be back. I just hate that we lost him before he finished his story.
Cliffhanger.
So how long have you been out, Chris?
Thursday. I got out here Thursday night. So, and I'm not an AI. I really am here. It's just my service is like glitchy.
It looks like, yeah. Looks like you.
Yeah, we've been walking and glassing, and I'm in lion country, so I only brought 4 dogs. So just in case I accidentally run across one. I'm not a great deer hunter, I like getting out to deer hunt just to hang out with my kids and whoever puts in and family. It's about it.
Yeah, but get to go camp and stuff. And
especially these little whitetails, coos deer, they're so small. I kill elk out of my back door. There he is.
There he is.
There. They kicked me off. I don't know why. It's probably got a deal on it. If you tell it's too windy, it'll cut you off. Anyway, the Fletcher gives me these 2 pups, and I hunted with. I called a guy in Monte Vista, Colorado, that I knew up there from hunting in that country, and named Mike McIntyre. And he had a bunch of dogs just like I did. And I called him. I said, Mike, who can I sell these dogs to? He said, oh, man, I need them. I said, what do you want for them? So I said, when? And he said, right now, I need them. I need them right now. I said, to you, yes. I said, I'll take $400, but you got to take them all. So I sold all the dogs to him for $400, and he was there at daylight the next morning to pick them up. And I never heard back from him, but I guess he did all right. Anyway, Fletcher was good to his word. Of course, I whelped them and fed them and got them grown, big enough to hunt. We started hunting, and we made lion dogs out of them.
Really?
But there's a point I'm going to make right here about breeding. His dog, those two dogs we bred to were as good as Jill was. She was a blue tick female from Shorty Lyons. He'd given her to Frank Dines, and Frank didn't, he didn't hunt much. But if he had a lion problem, he'd call Fletcher or one of the boys had lion dogs, and or he'd set a trap and catch it. That's what Frank. But anyway, he had the dog, and he didn't do nothing with her, and so he gave her to Fletcher, and that's where she came from. And he had a liver and white spotted dog, white dog with liver spots on him, and he called Brandy. And I don't know what his breeding was, really. But I know at one time, Fletcher, way back in the beginning, he had gone out and got a couple of dogs, old man Vaughn Plott. And he'd had dogs from the Keys and people over in that, in that reserve area, southwest New Mexico. But anyway, there was about 8 pups in that litter. And Jill was as fine a cold trailing dog as I ever knew. She could move one when nobody else could, and move it and just keep it going.
Keep it going.
Brandy was just a really good all around dog. But of those 8 pups, he kept them all. I kept, 2 of them were mine. We hunted them all. And the 2 that I picked the day they were born turned out to be magnificent dogs. I'd say they're very good, the equivalent at least to their parents. And the other dogs in that litter were just good dogs.
Yeah.
But they were never a lead dog. They never the best like they should have, And I think that's the way dogs were bred back years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You just bred a good dog to a good dog, and it might have been the only good dog out of 10.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of a hit or miss deal, I think, back in the early days.
And you guys didn't have access to dogs like we do now.
No.
What? I need to mention Shorty Lyons. He was a USDA hunter, wasn't he? I mean, he hunted for the government. I don't know if it was USDA back then.
Yeah.
And I got a book here somewhere called Shorty or something like that. It was about him. He was a heck of a trapper too, wasn't he?
Well, that's what he did. The truth was, Shorty Lyons probably caught more lions than traps. Hang on a minute. I think I wasn't really all ready to do this. I was going to watch you guys. I didn't know what was happening. Let's see. Okay, I think we're good. Anyway, I'll change my chair around here a little bit. The Shorty Lyons worked for, I don't know, state or federal, whatever it was, Fish and Wildlife. And if people had a lion problem or bear problem, he'd come and catch it.
Mm-hmm.
But Shorty there was a trap, and Mike Root might have that trap now.
Yep.
There was a trap that Shorty Lyons left in a saddle. I don't remember now what we called it, but it would have been west and south of the Dines headquarters on a big ridge there.
On the Dines ranch,
but that's what Shorty do. He just come by and set a trap and some scrapes and go on. He might not ever come back to them. I mean, I've heard Frank talk about going up there and Fletcher both finding a trap. They just shake the bones out of it and reset the trap. He don't think he ever went back to a lot of them. But anyway, we hunted all that country there. But that's where, and I don't have a clue what Jill came from, but that was where how she was bred, but that's where she came from.
You guys starting young pups like that, and you didn't have any shocking collars or anything like that. How did you get them going?
Well, in that case, we had some good dogs to start them with.
Yeah.
And, those puppies, I'll tell you about how the puppies grew up on that big old farm there at Bernardo. I had big kennels, but those puppies ran loose all their lives until they got big enough to start being gone. The first time they ran off and was gone all night. And Billy Jack, my son, was a little guy, and we were cleaning up that old big farm. It was just like a jungle. But anyway, we'd get up early and go to work, me and the crew around there. And Billy would get out of bed, and here he'd come across the farm just, like a little Amazon with them 2 hound pups. And he'd tell the biggest stories, He said, oh, yeah, he'd make a big line out of it. But they'd run rabbits all the time. And they would run a rabbit in that old sandy, dry sand. They'd trail one up and jump it. And then it was about a 50-yard race. And then they'd lose it again, that old dry sand. But those dogs, that's where they learned to hunt, was running rabbits in that old salt cedar jungle down in there.
I'll be dang.
And then they were hunted with good dogs, good honest dogs. So they just never were bad. I don't ever remember having any trouble out of any of those dogs really being trashy.
Really?
And another thing too is there was lots of game then. There wasn't no lion hunters. There wasn't no side-by-sides and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And not many people lion hunt. So the dogs, we were always on game.
Yeah.
It was seldom that we'd go down to the Dines, down to Winston, down that country, that we didn't run a line.
Really?
And probably more times than not tree one.
I'll be dang. That'd make a good lion dog.
There was mountains in. And that was, we were in there probably before Mike Root got there. Mm-hmm. I remember the first time I ever met Mike Root. I was at that ranch at Dusty there, and that was kind of an experience. We had that ranch, and one day I hear my dogs were tied up there. I had cow dogs. I had a lot of wild cattle at that time. Anyway, I hear this old truck banging down off the hill because the forest road went right through between my house and barn, and the dogs will go to bark. And I look up, and here comes an old black Ford pickup, banging out, rattling off down through there. And there was Mike Root and a couple of other young guys. And Mike Root had an old black hat about like mine, maybe a little more beat up than this one. But anyway, and he was wearing an old green Army olive drab T-shirt with just about half tore off of him, just kind of hanging over his shoulder and around his neck and down the side. And a pickup load of this big old dogs, great big old dogs. And he drove up there and we talked a little bit and he went on. That's first. And I never seen him again for quite a while. I never hunted with him for a long time. I never, was around him much until later. But that's where I met him right there. And yeah, Mike's got some great stories. He probably don't tell you all of them, but I got some really campfire stories I probably wouldn't tell on the TV. But
you don't want to share with everybody.
Yeah, around their campfire story. But no, Mike's a swell guy. He's a prince of a man and a hard son.
He's as tough as they get, isn't he?
Yeah, he really is. The only guy I know that's probably that tough is Billy Jack.
I've heard that.
Billy Jack, he last winter down there, he killed so many lions with the seasons and the side by side thing. Anyway, winter, but he was in country that you couldn't take a horse in. He's hiked, but he told me one day there, he said he'd been 16 miles back in those mountains in the, back east of Gila and back in there, up the Gila River.
Yep.
Back in that big bluff country. And, but anyway, I think he said he'd logged in 16 miles there on his machine that day. But no, he's a tough guy.
Is he still hunting lions? Is he still got his hounds?
Oh yeah. And he bred his oldest female to one of my blue dogs last winter when I left there. He had 2 puppies. She's a really old dog, but she's about the end of a rope. he never had raised any pups out of her, so he bred her there to old Grizz. And that Grizz dog's a pretty amazing hound. But anyway, he bred her and he got 2 male pups.
I know when I hunted with Orville, he told me he said that Billy Jack Llewellyn was probably the best lion hunter around nowadays. And
Yeah.
I heard stories about Billy Jack living in a teepee there on the Members and caught like 12 lions and 5 bobcats one season. And and I've got to talk to him a few times on the phone. Of course, he's always out and about somewhere. I don't think he's available very often.
Well, Billy Jack was, I'll tell you kind of how he's, I raised him pretty much by myself, and he rode the first bighorn sheep hunt they had in the Pecos Wilderness. Billy Jack was there. Really? He rode his own pony. It's about 14 miles in there. He rode his own pony in there, made every step me and the hunter made, and was there laid down beside us when the hunter shot the sheep.
Oh, be dang. How old was he?
So, and he was about 4, I think.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. He had at the same time, now this is how our game department works. At the same time they had that hunt, they had a big net up down there in the salt ground, and they were trapping sheep at the time the hunt was going.
Oh, jeez.
And there was another couple of works in that deal. There was a kind of an albino looking game warden. What was his name? Real blonde, real blonde headed and stuff. And goodness, I can't remember his name. But anyway, he'd drawn a sheep tag, and we come out with our sheep the day we killed our sheep. We rode out with it, and he's sitting over in a blind watching that salt ground where they've been trapping those sheep. And so anyway, I asked him about it, if that was really kosher, and went on. But there was a government hunter and a good lion hunter and stuff that lived down by Silver City or something that worked for the game department, whose boy went off and did some deals down in South America, I think, doing some jaguar studies or something.
Oh,
was his name Lee?
I know who you're talking about. He lived up there by the cliff dwellings for a while.
Was his last name Lee?
No.
Anyway,
I can't remember the name. I met him.
They were kept netting those sheep, and we were camped where we were camped. We were camped up there, and I guess we maybe we'd already shot our sheep. I don't know, but we were there at camp, and they were shooting that cannon off with that net on it, catching them sheep, and they were tranquilizing them, and putting them in panniers and packing them out. And so they come by our camp with a bunch of them sheep, and of course they're unconscious, and they got them sitting in panniers, and their heads are hanging out the side of it, just a flopping, their old tongue hanging out. So they look dead. And Billy Jack, of course, he's a little turd. He runs out there and looks this deal over, and he turns around and runs back over, and he said, Dad, he said, the sons of bitches are killing the mamas and the babies. Anyway, he was upset. And they did kill a lot of sheep. A lot of them died. They were just throwing them off the end of a bluff right there by our camp. There was a bunch of dead ones there.
I bet it's kind of stressful for them, packing them out and everything, being tranked.
Well, yeah, they were probably new at it. A lot of that stuff, transplanting animals probably gotten a lot better in the later years. As far as dosage and kind of drugs that they could use and stuff. But I remember those old ewes, they just in them panniers with their head hanging over the side, just flopping. They're completely unconscious.
So when you were hunting with Orville, did y'all guide a lot of hunters?
Not a whole lot, but some. We took quite a few lion hunters and bear hunters.
Did you?
Fletcher did. And of course I lived there, had that place there at La Jolla, that big old place, and I stayed there quite a while, quite a few years. And but he he always took a few. You know, we'd take maybe a deer hunter down at the Dines or something, but he didn't outfit a lot because his main deal was training racehorses and stuff.
Yeah,
Fletcher did. You know, so that was his main deal. Of course, that was summertime stuff. And so he was off all fall and winter. You know, he didn't have much activity going on then.
That's how my dad got to know him.
You know, he could. People used to say, if you know, ask me about Fletcher, and I said, well, he could probably take your wife's dog and lap dog and go catch a lion.
That's what I heard.
I mean, he worked really hard at it. You know, if you'd go up a ridge, get up on a big ridge and ride it ways. And he said, man, I think there ought to be a lion here. He said, if he's not walking this ridge, he's walking the side of this hill hunting. And then you got all those little headers, little ravines going off the side of the mountain. It's usually a south slope with grass on it. So Fletcher would say, if you'll lead my mule, I'll walk the dogs down this little old brushy draw. And he would. He'd just crawl off and just get through them limbs, but he'd make them dogs stay right in with him. Because if that lion is out on that grass, it's hard to pick it up, you know. But if they got in across them rocks and them little old drainages, the dogs would pick it up.
Then the dogs would hit it.
Yeah. But, you know, that's part of the reason I think that we treat a lot more lions than anybody did then, because we just really worked hard at it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, instead of just riding the trail going up the mountain and stuff like that. Well, we didn't hunt like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, we just hunted where we thought the lion would be.
Yeah. Huh. And I mean, how many years did you hunt with him?
Oh, goodness. I don't know. Till Billy Jack was about maybe 4 when we moved down there. I guess that's about the time he moved we down there. So he goodness. So Billy Jack was, I don't know when let's see, I'm trying to think. I still hunt with him when we moved to Winston. So I must have hunted with him for goodness, maybe 10 years, something I guess. And because I kept those 2 dogs. I had those 2 dogs when I lived down at the ranch at Winston. Ben and Dixie, I call those. And you know, they were getting old there and old. And I raised a litter of pups off of those dogs, and I kept 2 of those, and they were really good dogs. You know, one of them died when he got cancer when he was getting some age on him, and the other old dog just died. Finally, died laying beside his doghouse one day. He got blind where he couldn't see. And but see, Fletcher hunted over there on the Double H a lot. He hunted lions over there for them.
Oh yeah, I remember hearing about that.
So I hunted a lot of that country with him over there.
I'll be dang. Well, they say that he probably caught more lions after the age of 80 than anybody in the world.
Oh, I imagine he did, because he just kept on hunting. Fletcher, I wasn't there, but they told me that Fletcher, when he lived up there by Sandia, that he loaded his mule and dogs and went lion hunting on his 100th birthday.
Yep. Yeah, and he couldn't. He had a bag. He couldn't pee, I guess, and they said he just stayed right up there.
I don't know. See, I never hunted with. I tell you, he was. You had to be. Fletcher was a pretty caustic guy, and he was hard to be around.
Oh, I know that.
He was hard to be around. If you ever hunted with him, you can imagine. But I was just tougher than that. See, I mean, nobody else was tough as me. That was the difference.
You were tough enough to put up with him.
Yeah, I mean that's how I learned to lion hunt. I was just tougher than some of them other guys. But you know, there was what was Bob Rollins, Cecil Ralston, and Bob Rollins.
Yeah.
You know, from up there around where they lived up there by North Albuquerque, I think originally. I don't know, but anyway, they were young guys, you know, and hunting, and I don't know how many times on the weekend and stuff they'd go down in the Winston country lion hunting, and I don't know if they ever caught a lion, but it seemed like when me and Fletcher went on the weekend, we'd always catch one, and we'd run into them at that little old restaurant and bar there in Cuchillo.
Cuchillo, yeah.
Yeah, and they'd be in there, and they'd been hunting the whole weekend. They hadn't done nothing, and but I tell you, those guys, what I heard that they hunted up north. They bear hunted a lot, and they caught. I think they really had some bear dogs.
Yeah,
but they didn't do any good lion hunting down there.
Cecil got a dog from me before he passed, and he worked for my dad at one time before he started hunting. Before he started outfitting, he was a backhoe operator for my dad. Cecil was, and then my dad used to haul oats out of Colorado, and that's how he got to know Fletcher. Fletcher used to come buy oats from my dad, and they'd say, I remember I was just a little kid. I don't remember Fletcher, but I remember my dad had that big old van with an auger and sacking those, those oats in gunny sacks, and Fletcher hauling them for his racehorses.
Yeah. No, it was hunting with Fletcher all those years was, like I say, you had to be tough to do it, but we had hundreds and hundreds of great hunts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just dog work, just the finest dog work that a guy could ever want to be with. And there were lots of lions then.
Yeah.
There was few people that hunted, Mike Root hunted there. We hunted there. And old man Graves Evans, he still when we first started hunting, Fletcher and I first started hunting down there, he hunted some. But Fletcher told me that old Graves had gotten so old, I don't think he could hear good, and his old dogs got pretty well out of control. And Fletcher said he rode I never met him. He said he rode a big old gray horse, and I guess he was a tough old bird, I think he was hunting when he was up in his 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And but I never met him, but I think he had been really a lion man too.
Yeah, I think so. From everything I've heard, that he was. I remember, I think it was Randy Lindsay that got to hunt with him a little bit, and they said he'd get on that mule in the morning, and all day long, and never get off. Pee right off the side of the mule. Never get off. Never just stay on it. It was too hard to get on and off. He was old.
Yeah.
I like it.
Well, I've not got that bad yet, but anyway. But no, that old Southwest country's pretty rough. But the Black Range, if you knew it, it wasn't that bad because there used to be livestock there, and windmills and stuff like that. So the traveling was a lot easier back them days.
Well, and they keep the trails beat out. Now it's terrible because they don't work the trails, and the fires have gone through, got all the downfall timber, and there's no cattle, so there's no cowboys keeping the trails beat out. It's not very good anymore.
Oh yeah, but say when we were there, you could just pretty well go where you wanted,
Yeah.
So I saw my first javelina there by the Dines, and the first one Fletcher had ever seen, I think, in that country.
Wow.
Way back during that time, coming in middle of in the afternoon or something, or middle of the day, riding from the south, from down toward Hermosa, or well, you can't use that word, but old Black Bob, the watermelon patch down there,
Yep.
He's coming up from there, and we see this black thing up ahead of us, and I first thought it was a big old porcupine or something. It's just going up the cow trail ahead of us. Like. We were headed in, and we finally got up there, and the dogs kind of made game. I don't think they chased it. They were kind of curious about it too, and finally we realized it was a javelina, and I'd never seen. That was the first one we'd ever seen in that country.
Man, there's bunches of them now.
Oh yeah, there are plenty of them around there now, but down there on the side of the road, when you go down into what I'd call it the watermelon patch down there, and there's a little rock formation right on the right-hand side of the road, and where it kind of makes a big curve and pretty flat in there and open. There's a little rock sticks out right kind of beside the road, and there's a hole back under there, and those javelinas lived in that hole. I mean, I guess forever, they when they moved in there, they located in that. Yeah. And I've driven by there, and the weather was cold, and they'd start squirting out there. They just keep coming out of that hole.
How about, you mentioned porcupines? Were there a lot of porcupines back then?
Yeah, there was quite a few porcupines. I tell you where there was more porcupines in that northern country, though.
Well,
you know, Chama and Penasco and up in that country.
How come we don't have any anymore? There's no porcupine. I haven't seen one in, well,
lions
years.
Ate them all.
Well,
no. I tell you what I think's happened with most of our stuff that we don't have anymore. I don't think the lions ate them. I think the coyotes killed them.
Yeah.
Because I think the coyotes eat all the babies of everything. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I don't think that the lions. Well, I mean, I've seen them. I've rode up on trailing lions. I rode up on a fair amount of porcupines that were just peeled out like a good taxidermy.
Yeah, just laid out.
Yeah, and one time, me and Fletcher, he had a guy from Purina Feeds. We'd hunted with him a time or two. Anyway, we camped over there. A road, there's a road that goes over the San Mateo's there. It comes out over by, I think, on the south of Big Rosa Canyon. Am I right?
I think so.
Anyway, I think we went down the highway and turned off the highway and went west and went in there. We'd been somewhere else, I think, and went back in there. But anyway, he had this guy from Purina coming, and Fletcher's wife was going to bring him down to camp. Fletcher had a big old overhead pickup camper, right? Big old thing. And so we go down there, and we're just going to make a hunt and camp and hunt out there. So we parked the truck and got saddled up, and we went behind the truck, like we went east from the truck. Truck was pointed west. So we go east and turn down a canyon there, and we hit a line track right away. And we trail this line track all day, and it makes a huge circle. And and I'm on the ground. That was another thing that me and Fletcher did too. We helped them dogs a lot. I mean, somebody'd lead the horse on them tough tracks. There's one of us leading the horse or mule, and the other guy was afoot helping them dogs find that track.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we'd made a big circle and not paying any attention where we'd been. Well, it's getting evening, and we had made a complete hairpin down in there without me even thinking about it, where we was at. And we're coming up through there, and directly we hear hounds barking. I said, damn. I said, somebody else is up here ahead of us. Well, we just go on, and we come out on the road. And I look, and there's the pickup down there a little ways. So we went, I'm going to say, a couple hundred yards, maybe little ways behind the pickup, hit that line track, trailed it all day, and crossed in front of the pickup. A little, the same distance in front of the truck. And we trailed up there, and when we got there, we said, we realized what we'd done. We've trailed him all day. Right there's where he'd been in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
So we just shut down, and the Fletcher's wife brought the hunter up. So the next morning we take off, and we take on this same line track that we trailed the day before, and we just go up the road and start. And we trailed him up there not too far, and there was a big old porcupine he shelled out. If we'd have followed him a half a mile further that first day, we'd have rode right to that kill, I guess.
Rode right to him.
Yeah, but anyway, we come to that kill, and where he'd been probably the day before, on that part of that same track. So we trail him again all day, and we don't catch him. And so we come back in. We go the next day where we quit and started him again. So he went way north through that country and turned around and headed back south. And we've been trailing, And Fletcher never laid out in his life. I mean,
He'd make
when
it back to camp.
he'd be back to camp before dark every time. So we're going, and he wanted to go to the house and the hunters whoop too, and I told him, I said, Fletcher, let's just stay. We'll catch this line. He can't be far ahead of us. He can't travel that far. And no, we're going to go in. The dogs were moving pretty good. And I said, man, we're going to have a jump. We're going to have a jump track here. So, no, let's go on in. We'll get him tomorrow. I said, well, I don't, I'm arguing. He said, well, if you think he catches, you just stay and catch it. I said, all right. I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I said, I'll tree him and stay with him tonight. You guys come back in here tomorrow. And I said, I'm about 9 o'clock in the morning, give you guys time. I'll build a smoke. We didn't have radios or nothing back then. I said, I'll build a smoke and you guys can find it. All right. So they leave. And the dogs, we're trailing. It gets dark. Of course, we didn't carry nothing back them days. Every now we got all kinds of good stuff. Compasses and lights and things. I mean, we're lucky to have matches. Anyway, the dogs trailing directed this. They get this line jumped when the race is on. And I'm riding a little old Appaloosa colt that I had bought, sale barn, and was breaking him to ride. And he was like riding a bicycle. You just had to pedal him all the time. And so I'm booting the horse along, and it's dark. I couldn't see the horse. It was one of them kind of nights. And I'm just following the dogs and letting him stumble along, keep wherever he could, trusting him. Well, the dogs bay this big line up. Well, no, they jump him. And he went off that mountain and down. And I don't know if that's like the mouth of Big Rosa. I don't really know didn't know that first time I'd ever been into that country. Anyway, they went off down into a huge canyon, and we were going south. The canyon's running east and west, dumping out west. Anyway, the dogs go off and head up this other mountain, and I'm thinking, my goodness, that line, if they go over that mountain, then I'm going to have to climb that thing in the dark, go off of where I'm off, and it's scary where I was at. And then I figured they're going to go over the mountain, that next big mountain. And then who knows where. They run in, they've got him jumped and running hard, and he gets about 2/3 of the way up that big mountain, and they turn to the right and went to running level, horizontal, contour. And of course, then it even got faster. And then he come down the hill. They run that line across and treat him on a bluff, probably 100 yards from me. And of course, I could have done the whole thing with my eyes closed. I couldn't see nothing. Anyway, they backed up just right there close to me. And the big boulders and terrible place. And I just keep pointing this poor little old horse toward them dogs and kicking him and whipping on him with the bridle rein. And he goes on and he'd stop, and I just keep banging on him, and he'd go forward and turn. And anyway, with in total blindness, we ride to the dogs, to where the dogs are bayed on this bluff. And so I've decided that this ain't a place to be all night with this line. He's going to leave. So I carry a 44 Magnum. The game warden's probably listening to this. But anyway,
statute of limitations.
I get this 44 Magnum carbine out, and I'm telling you, well, you've been those kind of nights. It was just dark, nothing. And so the dogs are just in a cluster right in this line's face, and I get on my hands and knees and crawl right up with the dogs. And I got this rifle, and I got it loaded. And when that lion would blow, when he'd throw his mouth open and blow, I could see his mouth and his teeth. So I get right with them dogs, and when he threw his mouth open, I just shoved the rifle toward him and pulled the trigger, and the lion disappeared off the bluff. And the dogs, of course, they went around down there to him. So I go down and find him. I get back on my horse. The horse was right by me, too. I didn't get far from him. I get on the horse. I get back kind of where I had been, I think, trying to, and figured where I could get off. And I just kept kicking and finally ride around to where the line's at and load him, get him on that old steep hillside, a big line. And I put him in the saddle and get up behind him on this little old colt. he just started booting him downhill, letting him pick and stumble. And we go to the bottom, and there's a gate, cattle and game trail. And I knew if I went up the canyon, Fletcher and them had to cross that trail. And so I just kept booting a little old horse, and directly up that canyon a while, he just kind of stopped, hesitated. And I thought, I wonder if we're about to this other trail, because I'm hoping he's going to smell them horses. And so I just let him stand a minute. I just kind of nudged him a little with my foot, and he made a left turn and headed south and rode out of there, rode to camp. And there was some snow drifts in there off that one side. Of course, we hadn't had no water. We never carried nothing to eat or drink back in the days. So I hadn't had nothing to eat or drink. So I'm eating some of that snow when I ride past some little snowdrift things up on the shady side. I'd grab a handful of snow and eat it. So I ride into camp not too long before daylight. I ride into camp and just slid that line off, and it just shoved him off the horse and got off and just turned the horse loose. And that camper, Fletcher had that old big camper, and I just opened the door and crawled in there and laid down on the floor and went to sleep. And wasn't probably much later. It didn't take long. Anyway, these guys get up, and there I lay on the floor. And they said, well, what happened? What happened? The lion get away? I said, no, he didn't really get away. I said, I think if you guys will hurry, run right out the back door, you'll get him. And they looked out, and he was laying there on the ground. The little colt was standing there grazing. But the hunter said, man, he said, that hunt wore me out. I'm ready to go home.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, you dang.
We had some great times. Of course, anybody that's hunted, out in that big country with dogs has had a lot of great times.
Oh yeah.
But no, Fletcher was a tough guy. He really was.
Did you help Mike Root some too?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I hunted with Mike, and I was trying to remember. I hunted quite a bit with Mike, and I remember he had a dog named Gyrene. I followed her all over the country back down in the Black Range there one time. After I guess they'd had a burn and burned out a lot of that little oak brush over toward Eagle Peak. And so, or Lookout, maybe it was up toward Lookout, where that was. And it was terrible to get through there. And old Gyrene, he had this white and red spotted dog named Gyrene. And we had one of them scattered races, part of the dogs going here and part went yonder. So we kind of got split up trying to follow them. You're trying to pick a better trail, and pretty soon we're not even together. So I hear she's bayed up back in there. And I worked through all this that old oak brush had burned and fell over, leaned over. And that mountain was covered in that stuff. Anyway, terrible place to get through. And I finally get me and my mule across there and go off in this canyon. And just before I get down to where she's bayed up, I see some fresh elk tracks. And when I got to her, she had about 10 elk bayed up in a little old rincon there, a little bluffy. My dog. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know what happened to the other end of the track where Mike and them caught her or not, but we all had some of them kind of.
I had one this morning.
Speaking
of javelina, I had some young dogs. I was out this morning and we had a heck of a javelina race, and I couldn't get my shocker out fast enough, and they overtook him, and of course I got some dogs cut up pretty bad. So
boy, they could.
But they got electricity too after that too. I was a little angry.
Oh man, that's about the only thing that saves mine in them kind of conditions is the battery life. Here in Oklahoma now, though, the javelina's got a little bigger.
Yeah,
we got these hogs. And they'll my little Poncha dog. She'd been cut really. She was cut bad twice before she was a year old. But she's just too tough. She just thinks a bear or anything, she can just catch it. She'll just get it. And but anyway,
What kind of dogs are you running now?
well, I've got all blue dogs. I had 2 of them running walker dogs. I sold them to a guy the other day. They were good bobcat dogs, but our bobcat deal's over here pretty much where I'm at. The Weyerhaeuser's pretty well wiped out everything. And anyway,
timber.
I've got all blue dogs except I had those 2 white dogs or running dogs, and I sold them to a guy further north up here that got some bobcat country. I sold those dogs to him. And that they were really nice dogs too to run bobcats with.
Do the blue dogs do good on bobcats?
Oh yeah. Oh, in fact, I'm writing a story for the Blue Book about Pancho and running the bobcat. When I moved here, I didn't have any. I never run any of them running dogs or nothing, and I had a blue dog and another little cur dog. Bill had left old Pancho there with Bill, and Bill couldn't get along with him. He couldn't catch him and stuff. But anyway, he did an absolute wonderful job. The only time Bill ever took him out. I mean, even Bill bragged on it. So, but anyway, Bill couldn't get along with him. So when I was out there guiding hunters, I picked him up and brought him back. And at that time, the bobcat deal was big here. And there was probably 4, at least sometimes a half a dozen guys, but a lot of times 3 or 4 bobcat hunters camped here at my place, and we'd hunt every night. And the best night I ever had that I ever had here hunting, we had 3 of those 2-hour races and seen 2 bobcats we didn't even turn out on. And but anyway, that I didn't have any of them. These guys all had them foxhound kind of dogs,
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't. I just had my couple of blue dogs, and I had Pancho and another one. So I told myself, I'm going to take Pancho with us. I didn't have a dog in the fight, see, at that time. And said, oh, no, they made a big joke out of it. So I said, well, I don't care. I'm going to take him anyway. So I take him and load him up with them. We go up there and go back over here, and they rigged the bobcat. We dumped him out. Well, I held on to Pancho, and they took that cat track, run him down to the creek, made a little horseshoe with him, and brought him back across the road behind us. Well, I hear him coming, so I turned Pancho loose, and he just kind of started to him. So he got to him about the time they were all crossing the road. And so I don't hear nothing out of him for a little bit. And they run up on the side of this mountain, and then directly you hear this. And them foxhounds got them little yapping voices. I call them squeakers.
Yep.
They have them little yapping voices. Anyway, directly you hear this roar come out of that deal. And that's this racket. This Pancho dog goes to the front. And that's where he stayed, race after race after night after night.
Really?
Yeah, they never outrun him.
I'll be dang.
I mean, he pulled off some of the most amazing bobcat races that a man could have ever heard. And he was always.
How's he bred?
Well, he come from Travis Black. And those dogs, those are all, I'm going to say it like this. I didn't invent them or nothing, but Guy Ormiston is a master breeder. And he's just kind of made a science out of it. And he studied from old breeders from way back. Anyway, you can say that just about every line from Pancho's pedigree winds up back to the Diamond Gem, to the Mountain Music line. That's what they are.
Yeah.
Time after time after time after time. And and it's like the big name dogs are way back there, but if you follow it, they're all and they're bred. I mean, there's brothers and sisters bred and daddies and cousins, and they're really concentrated back to the Mountain Music Blue stuff, which made Diamond Gem.
Mm.
And I've got Ormiston, but Ormiston's the one that orchestrated it since way back, And So I just fell into it. I'll tell you how I got into it, though, was Travis Black over at San Angelo had heard of Mike Root, and he wanted some of Mike Root's dogs. And Mike had quite a breeding program. You know how Mike's breeding program was. If you want a pup, you better not take a big crate. You better just take a little bitty crate, because you went to Mike's, there's going to be 30 puppies running around there. And you want a puppy? He said, well, which one can I have? He said, well, whatever you can catch, take as many as you want. And but anyway, he'd always heard of Mike Root, and he wanted some of Mike Root's dogs. So they get together somewhere, and he gives Mike Root, he gets some of Mike's dogs, and gives Mike Root a blue tick female puppy. And Mike didn't even want her. That's somebody else's stuff. And so we're at the Hermosa, and I'm helping Mike with some elk hunts and stuff. Well, I guess elk hunting at that time. I guess bear season was open, because I know we shot a bear or two on that hunt. But anyway, so this puppy, Mike just had it like the rest of his dogs. They just run loose at camp. He kept his good dogs tied up, and all them pups just run loose. So that puppy, this blue tick female, she got to following me everywhere I went. And Mike couldn't catch her or nothing. Anyway, but I kind of made friends with her, and she mothered up to me, and we took off. Well, I was packing camps and, mainly at that first starting out, just packing camps and things like that, packing in hunters and stuff, and not guiding much, but just mainly doing packing for them. So this dog follows me, and every track she crossed that she is gone. I don't think it made any difference what it was. Mm-hmm. But if she ran everything she smelled, and she'd burn out of there in the most beautiful voice you ever heard. I call it a calling voice. It was like when she's running with the dogs, it was like, come on, we can catch it. We're going to catch it. There was so much excitement in the voice. I mean, she could have made a worthless dog run. Anyway, so I'm telling Mike, I said, Mike, that's an amazing puppy. He said, well, if you like her, I said, yeah. I said, this is going to make a fine dog. Anyway, he said, well, if you can catch her, you can have her. So I throwed some feed in the horse trap and caught her. Got to petting her up, and she hunted. She was my dog at that point. And we started hunting her. I hunted them all one winter, never caught a lion. I didn't hardly hurt any dogs right then. And I had got a dog from Ray Hatch, a white dog. And that white dog from Ray Hatch, come from Wisconsin. And he mentioned in his book, he put a deal in his book to me. He said that he was a white dog with a black spot. And he was by his old dog that's called Blue in the magazine, or in his book.
Yeah.
So we bred those. Yeah, and we raised a litter of pups. We kept 2 of them. We called them, and that was the beginning of the great dogs that we had, was that pair of pups. And then we bred the female, Chloe, we bred her to a blue tick dog from he come from a guy up here from Rudy Garrison and Trey Clapp, what's his last name? Anyway, Trey's daddy. Carl Clapp. And he was a big time Smoky River chief kind of a dog, red dog. And and we just kept breeding. And then we got a white female. The first litter was all blue, and then we got a white female. Bill bred her to another blue tick dog. In that litter, there was a white one. So there'd always been a white puppy. And that's really what Bill's dogs are, right down off of that female.
We got Benny Griffith joining us.
Do what?
We got Benny Griffith joining us over here.
Oh, great. I see somebody up there.
Yeah, he looks like he's all cleaned up tonight.
Yeah, that's just a tropical delusion.
Oh.
AI.
Vinny's an
I had to move
Arizona
closer to the
lion
fire.
hunter.
What's that, Chris?
I had to move closer to the fire. The temperature dropped here real good. I'm in Globe right now trying to find a coos deer.
Well, there's some over there.
I seen one little one yesterday, and we tried to go after him today and couldn't find him. But I brought my dogs in case I see a track.
I understand.
I have priorities.
Otis was talking about those Smoky River bred dogs, and I had a Smoky River dog that was a real good dog, but way back all of that stuff went to the Lee brothers. How far back did you have that, Otis?
Well, I didn't have. See, I never met the Lee brothers. Fletcher used to always tell me we was going to go over and visit with Clell, but we just never did. And I mean, all I know about the Lee brothers dogs is that just what little stories probably that some of us read, about some of their adventures. But I really didn't know. I don't remember reading where their dogs came from.
I'll be right back.
Some of this eastern country and got some, or where they came from. But
do you know where they came from, Benny?
Huh?
I think they came from all over.
Well, they very likely
so too.
Used to we didn't have people didn't have the transportation and the communication, and some rancher had some dogs that he line hunted, and he'd have a litter of pups, and somebody'd get a pup from him, and that's kind of the way they were all bred. Most of them were bred out of good hunting dogs, but there was no rhyme or reason as to what, bloodline or anything they would have been. The Lee brothers were probably the closest of anybody doing that.
Yeah, I think that they traded dogs a little bit. From what I understood, they traded dogs wherever they were hunting. If there was somebody that had good dogs, like they traded with Dub Evans to some extent. But my Smoky River dog that I had was registered, and in her lineage you could see Lee brothers all throughout it.
I'll be darned. That's pretty interesting. That's pretty neat.
That was probably, oh my gosh, it might have been 38 years ago when I had that dog.
Yeah.
And that far back in all this lineage, the Lee brothers would still show. I think Clell Lee was the one that started the registration of the blue tick breed.
They use some of his dogs in the process.
What was that, Chris?
Did those Lees use a lot of blue dogs?
Well, they must have.
Everything.
Yeah. I never met any of them. I talked to Dale on the phone 3 times, and he invited me down to Tucson to visit with him every time. And of course, I was young and didn't have any time for anybody and anything, and some of those regrets,
Yeah.
I've got friends
that old dog. The old dog, one of the old original dogs when I met Fletcher was a blue tick dog, and he called him Clell, and that's where he came from Clell Lee.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a different bunch of, a bunch of the people that I know and knew that have passed on were friends with the Lees.
Yeah. Well, they were the line, during that era. And there wasn't, most of the ranchers probably back in those old timers, we'd call them, back in that era, most of those mountain ranchers had some dogs. Most of them had some dogs, and but I think a lot of them didn't do a lot of hunting like the Lees, but they had some hounds there, and if a lion they found a fresh kill somewhere, they'd take the dogs and catch it. But as far as really going and hunting, I doubt if that many of them, not too many of them really hunted all the time.
wonder
I
if they
hunted
picked
over
up
in the
any.
Davis Mountains with a guy that owns the ranch where one of those Evanses was originally. And he tells of big hunting parties that they used to have way back then where everybody would come and they just hunt for 2 or 3 weeks, just every single day, just hunt. They camped out and they hunted. And
Yeah.
you don't hear that stuff anymore. Even deer camps aren't like they used to be.
I don't know.
Weekend warriors.
Why is it? Why do you guys think that?
Money.
I think
Got to
you're
pay
right.
your bills.
Yeah.
Taxes.
Yeah. Well, that and yeah, they're all having to work. Back those days. Even goodness, when me and Fletcher were hunting together, I had that old place. I had that big old farm down there at La Jolla, but I didn't have to work every day. All that was my job, was to be there and clean that place up. And but in the wintertime, and a lot of the ranchers and stuff too, even after the wintertime, after the cattle are shipped, well, that's not they didn't haul feed, and they weren't feeding cattle every day and stuff. And and they hunted quite a bit, I imagine, through the winter.
Well, Otis, I
Yeah.
was going to raise a question tonight, so I'll just raise it with you because Brett made fun of me last week because I was the oldest one on here, and I think I'm probably not the oldest one tonight. So I know
I've been
things
having
were a little
to
bit
search to find people older than me, so I
I'm
can
just
sit and
happy I'm the
listen.
youngest.
So
Listen,
it's
you're not going to ask me how old I am.
and I'm
Not
absolutely not.
not here on the
I'm
worldwide TV show.
I just
But
know that things used to be a little bit more wild than they are today. Have you ever
yeah.
climbed up in the tree and knocked a lion out of the tree with a stick?
Oh, how many times?
Pulled his tail.
How many times? Yeah. I mean, sure. Or I tell you what, my hunting with Fletcher, my big suit was staying there all night and trying to keep them up the tree.
Till the hunter could get there the next day.
Yeah, so the hunter could get there the next day. But anyway, yeah, what I remember one time we treed one, and down there on the just over the that ridge there south of Springtime, down there by north of Montesano. And Fletcher was trying to take some pictures for these guys, and he climbed up. It was a little old scrawny pinon tree, and the lion didn't want to jump out. Fletcher climbed right up in there and got really close to that thing and took pictures. And he kept saying, "Fletcher, that thing can reach you. He's like, watch you plumb out of there." And anyway, he took some pictures of it. I'll tell you a short story about Fletcher, and I'll think the guy's name. Brett will know him. He used to have that ranch. You turn off there at Escondido, or no? Where'd they sell the hamburger place? Where's the big hamburger place on the river south of Socorro there?
At San Antonio.
Yeah. Anyway, he there was the old Ball Ranch is what it used to be. Back up right at the mouth of Pike Canyon, I think that is. That'd be on the southeast corner of the Magdalenas.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big spring canyon. Is that what they call that?
Yep.
Because there. Anyway, I'll think that guy's name if I keep talking. But anyway, and a friend of Fletcher's that was a truck driver that lived at Bosque Farms, he liked to go with us. And anyway, this I wasn't on this hunt, but I've heard the story many times from the guy, the victim, and Fletcher too. Anyway, they free this lion up there, and they're going to rope it. So they get a rope on it and pull him off the limb, and he's swinging up there. I probably had a leg through the loop too, or something. Anyway, so he's not choking. So they got him swinging, and Boy, I'll think of this guy's name. Anyway, the victim, was a friend of Fletcher's, went with them. And they're trying to grab the lion's tail. And that lion's swinging back and forth. And this friend of Fletcher's, the guy from Boston Farm, had a great big nose, great big old snout. And that lion swinging back and forth, and he's trying to grab that lion's tail, and that lion swatted at him with his foot and hit him right horizontally across the nose, the face, and cut his nose almost off. I mean, cut it all the way right where the gristle and the bone come together. And it just fell down on his lip. And blood, you can imagine. Anyway, but that was his, he'd show everybody when we're hunting after that, he'd show everybody his scar where that lion cut his nose off.
Fell down on his lip.
Yeah. Cut it off. They just dropped down on his back. And you can imagine it bled. Gracious. Anyway, I don't know what happened to the lion. They might have turned it loose after that. Probably didn't. I don't know what they were even catching it. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to rope and tie a lion. I was with Rick Dickerson over in Arizona, and I told you last week that lion that actually there was two kittens treed. That dog that he bought from John Clump, he called her Dandy. We were headed down off of Pine Mountain, and that dog was cold trailing, backtracking, and we knew, Rick knew that somebody had killed an old female up there several days back, and there was a little spot of snow now and then. So anyway, we get down, the dog's trailing the right way. He says, just let her be. We get down the trail down in the canyon 2 or 3 fingers below, and she's treed up there. So Rick says, here, hold my mule. And he goes running up there, and he hollers back, bring them horses and mules. We got a lion. And I got there, and there was 2 young lions in a tree, an old dead, gnarly tree leaning out over the bluff. And I told Rick, I said, this is perfect. I didn't bring my catch rope or nothing. I said, look, down there at Nelson's place, we're only about 3 miles away. You just stay here, and I'm going to go get my rope. I want to tie one of these lions up. And Dickerson was a taxidermist at the time, so he had a lot to do every day with the game department with his business. And, he said, if you leave, I'm going to shoot both of them lions. There won't be a live one for you. And so I never caught any others that size, and I sure don't want to experiment with one of them mean buggers, so I'm not as tough as those old guys were.
Well, wasn't it the Lee brothers used to tie them up all the time, didn't they?
Oh, yeah. I think that was a regular deal. I've known some guys that, I don't know that they did it, but they've known other guys that have done it in the past. But I think mostly it's those old timers. These guys today, I don't think they have that much sand.
No. Yeah. The younger guys, they don't have a for it for the hunt. I don't think there's the younger, a lot of these young, especially these side by side hunters, weekend hunters, they don't have a passion for it that they're at. I mean, goodness, I've risked my life just to keep the dogs from killing a young lion and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. We didn't want it to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, Fletcher and I, goodness, no telling how many breed that, if we didn't have a hunter, we had no reason to kill a lion if we didn't have a hunter.
Yeah, it was more about the hunt.
I've got a funny, it's kind of a short, funny Fletcher story on a bear hunt up there in the Pecos one time. Had a spring bear season, and he had a hunter. And I think we wound up catching a lion for this guy, took down the Manzanos. But anyway, we run a bear, and of course, in the springtime, you know how they are. You tree a lot of them back in the den. Well, we treed this lion back in a cave, and it was like like there might have been a giant root grew out of these rocks millenniums ago, but it was big. It was just a hole that went back in there and got smaller as it went back, and it had a shelf kind of on it, and it's full of leaves. Anyway, this old bear goes back. They bay him up in that, and you could hear him in there grunting and stuff, but it's pretty far back in there. So we get the dogs out of the way, and we can't get him out. So we built a fire and set an old pine pole of fire there, and got it to smoking, and there was some leaves there. So we shoved that thing back in there in them leaves. And Fletcher tells me, he said, "Now you get the mules and horses and everything, and the dogs out of the way, and we'll just smoke that bear out of there." So I get the dogs with me, and we get down there, and Fletcher and the hunter are sitting back over there waiting for this bear to come out. Well, it's, pretty soon the smoke's that old that cave filled with smoke. Well, Fletcher's sitting there, and he goes to sleep. He probably hunting hard, whatever. Anyway, he reared back there, and he's sound asleep. And the hunter's sitting there, and all of a sudden, the hunter, he tells me this part of it. He says, the smoke just started pushing out of there. Just woof, out comes the smoke. Well, then out walks this big old red bear, really a red one. And he just walks out, and he said the hunter was pretty spooked. He said it was scary. He said that smoke was all in its hair. And he said when he come out, that smoke was coming out of his hair, looked like fire or something. And he said it was red. And he said, I had a license black bear. And he said, I thought it was a grizzly or something. He said, and he looks over, and here's his champion guide, sound asleep. And so the bear's just walking out, and Fletcher wakes up, and of course Fletcher, he gets pretty excited back in the day, and it's like shoot, 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 and so boom, the gun goes off, and he shot the bear in the front leg or something. So anyway, when the gun goes off, the dogs, they all leave me there. The hunt, instead of a dead bear, the race was on. So he goes off down this canyon and starts down it. Well, I'm running along above him, and I can see him down there. And the old bear's, he's hit in the front leg or something. So I run him down and finally shot him with my pistol and got him killed. But yeah, that hunter, he told that story a dozen times around. I think we took him line hunting. But anyway, yeah, he said he just didn't know what to do because he thought it was a grizzly. Anyway,
smoke coming out of his hair.
Fletcher.
I'll be dang.
But,
yeah, old Fletcher. I tell you what, I got to hunt with him a couple times, and he was hard to be around.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He was hard on me.
Oh, he's hard on everybody. The hunter's the same. One time,
we got company.
That's one of my workers.
He's on national news or national TV right here.
Yeah, but he's going to be quiet. Part of the crew, he just showed up. Anyway, no, that's hunting with Fletcher was always an adventure.
How did you meet him?
Well, I met him at the guides meeting back when I still lived at Taos, or maybe when I lived at Taos. I lived at Penasco right then when I lived right there, one of them places at Taos, I guess. And we was trying to form a Guide and Outfitters Association, and that's where I met him. Was at that time, Okay. So that had been about 66 or something like that, 66 or 67. In fact, it was a year that I had guide license number 1 that year, and then they abandoned the guide licensing deal. So I had a guide license number 1 for a year that they didn't even didn't have to have a license. They got rid of our guide licenses deal.
Probably did.
But that's how I met him. And then there was a guy, Bruce Bull, lived up at Eagle Nest. He was an old hunter. I never hunted with him, but I met him a time or two. And he was an old guy at that time. See, that had been 60, like 67 or something, 60, that late 60s, mid 60s to late 60s. And but he was a renowned lion man there at that time.
Yeah.
And he rode a henny. He had a henny that he rode. And that's the first one of them I'd ever seen. But he was a real mule fan,
Where have I heard of Bruce Bull before, Benny? Have you?
It's a common name, Brett.
In the lion hunting world?
Well, and probably in Dale Lee's book too.
Oh, okay. I knew it somewhere.
He could have known those guys because he was.
Yeah,
he was
I think he hunted with them some. That would be a story. That would be a question for Steve. Brett, Steve would know.
Yeah, I'll ask him next time I talk to him.
I met. I went to his place once and visited with him, and he come to the guides meetings and stuff during that.
He's pretty old at that time.
He was an older guy then. Mm-hmm.
66, 67.
Probably. Yeah, that's the years it was. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was an older guy then. He was probably up in his. I'm gonna say he was at least up in his 60s then.
For some reason, I think it's in that. It's either in Dale Lee's book or Dub Evans.
I was gonna say I remember hearing that name because it's kind of a Bruce Bull. Something you would remember.
Yeah. But he lived there at there by Eagle Nest. Kind of when I think it was out in where they built that Vietnam Memorial. I think it was right out in that.
Got a stalker.
Yeah, I see that photo bomb. I think she was waving at you, Brett.
Ah.
Well, listen, some of you guys got to tell a story. I don't want to tell all my stories.
Well,
I can listen. I can sit here all night and listen to stories. I haven't had to say a word. There ain't nobody in one of them little side-by-side buggies that are going to tell these stories at all. 100%. Because most of them don't know what dry ground is because they're hunting in the snow.
Well, and the thing is, I mentioned the word earlier. Probably there's not many guys that have the passion for it anymore. It's just to go out and kill a lion. And
I've been saying that for a long time, Otis. It's not about the dog anymore.
I wonder how many of them even save the hide, to have it mounted or anything.
I just don't think it's about the hound anymore.
Eat them.
It's about producing a dead lion.
Yeah.
It's not about the process.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah, a lot of it's just for. Well, it's not. It's just for social media. You got to get that picture of you lying above you.
Yeah, definitely that. Just because they can post, But goodness, that's what I was thinking earlier. Well, and any of the older guys can tell you that when there was nobody else lion hunting. I know when Mike and I were young guys there at Winston, and when I lived there by Winston, north of Winston. He lived at Cochille. We were young guys then. I wasn't that young. I was probably in my 50s or something. I don't know. But Mike's younger than me, and but there was nobody else around hunting. There was hardly any lion hunters around. There's a few guys that bear hunted, but there wasn't very many guys that lion hunted. And,
I came to it on the desert in Arizona where all the ranchers had hounds just out of self-preservation.
Oh, yeah. They did.
I talked to
Go ahead, Chris.
I talked to a guy who was guiding, and he said he got rid of his mules because nobody wanted to ride a mule no more. They just wanted to go run around in them buggies and catch a lion.
Yeah.
You know, to me, it's all about that experience of being out there on the mule or a horse, or
Oh, yeah. The whole thing, all
Well,
of it.
yeah.
It's not just now they got those trail cams. There's a guy there in New Mexico that I've heard that uses a lot of those telephone trail cams and stuff. I know about every time he takes a lion hunter out, they catch a lion. Seems like, and but and I can't find that much lion sign even when I'm hunting back in there.
Yeah. Well, you came back and you spent a season last year, didn't you? You're in New Mexico.
I treed one lion last winter.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, I only had about 2 other that I'm sure were lion trailing sessions.
Yeah.
And but we run some bobcats and stuff like that, and covered lots and lots of country, and we worked some tracks that I'm thinking that we probably trailed a lot of bobcats, because we didn't catch no coatimundies down there, so it wasn't. Well, I know we weren't running coatimundies, but they're we'd trail and wind up in some big old rocky bluffs, and dogs trail around and just never could finish the track. And but I treed one young male lion over and left him, but you don't want to tell the rancher you left him. Anyway. But and then I went back in there later, a few days later, and I'm suspecting there was a female. I didn't know there was a kill in there when I treed that lion. But anyway, they that country 2 days later, and hit another track, and that's right there. It might be 3 or 4 days later, and hit another track there. Went up over some big bluffs and got out dogs, and got plumb away from everybody. And that country's there's really, really steep and nasty. And my what I call my trail hound, old Grizz, that young dog. I caught him. They got plumb away. He got plumb away from me, and finally I opted just to go back to camp and get the truck and go around the mountain. And anyway, he was still trailing. It was 12 hours, and he was still moving that track along. So I imagine I'm guessing that it was a female in there with that Tom maybe, and we hit her because it was hot for a bit, and she got over them bluffs and got out in front of him, and I'm sure that how they'll do. They'll just get in front of that dog and just kind of trot along and stay ahead of him. And so he was moving it, but it wasn't in country that he could really line it out and run it, and he had no help. And but I imagine that was come back to it a few days later, and the dogs picked up a fresh deer leg in there. So I imagine
it was a kill
originally, when I hit them off of that.
Did you still riding your mules or horses or?
Oh yeah. My mule.
Did you prefer mules or horses?
Oh goodness, I've had great both of them. It's there used to be a kid that lived there at Bernard there north of Malin, was a welder, and when the mule deal was a big deal, one day he was saying, these guys always tell me that a mule can do is better than having 2 horses, and he said, I think I'll just haul 2 horses.
I've had days like that.
Yeah. I've had some terrible things and rode them a long time, and I've had a good animal ever was. Bill's got a good pair. One of his old mules getting pretty old now. It's kind of too old to use, and he's got a young mule that's really good, but he's too big. He's a great big mule. My little Ruby mule, she's about 16 years old, but you can turn her loose in camp.
Yeah.
You ride her, come in, turn her loose. She'll go roll in the sand and go off grazing. And at coffee next morning, you're making coffee, and she'll stand up, be there at the trailer grunting, wanting fed.
She's a pet.
Yeah, she's a sweetheart. She really is.
You turn my mule loose somewhere, and she might end up back at camp. I think.
Back at the home camp.
I've never turned her loose. So.
Well, mine, I didn't do it intentionally. She escaped, but she didn't go. I went out. I tied her to a limb there, and some way that little old oak limb broke off at night. And I woke up in the morning, seen a drag mark, and I said, "Oh man, at least she's going to have something to, find." So I just went. I said, "I'll just go ahead and have my breakfast and take it easy. And I'll go look for her after a bit." And time I got the coffee made, she was back. She drug her little old limb back up there and standing there wanting fed. So I never tied.
We got done off a big ride and lost some dogs and made it back to camp, and my mule got loose and I said a bunch of cuss words, and she ran all the way around my truck, ran to the back of the trailer, and jumped in on her own. So either she was just real wore out, or she wanted out of there.
What did you remember the words? That might have been the secret of it.
Well, I beat them out on my video.
Oh, okay.
They weren't good words.
Oh, okay. You should have put them on save. You could have just saved them, and you might need to use them again.
Oh, I use them quite a bit. Too much.
Oh, do you? All right, just so you didn't forget it.
Oh no.
Maybe the common words.
Benny, did you prefer a mule or a horse, or did you care?
I prefer 100 horses over one good mule.
You're like that old man told me. I asked him, do you like mules or horses? He said, I like a good mule. And if I ever find a good mule, I'll buy him.
There's a bunch of people that I know that wouldn't like that answer, but no kidding. You remember my stick horse, Brett?
Yep. Benny's frozen.
No, I
don't know what happened.
Maybe that's just all he had to say.
Go ahead. Now I had a buckskin horse that I brought from Oklahoma when I moved to New Mexico in '67, and I rode him till he was 30. He fell off a bluff there, waterfalls there on that ranch at Winston when I lived there. He's about 30 years old, but he was an amazing horse. I mean, you could pack him, ride him. Kids could ride him. You could you could gather wildcats on him. You could do anything. And big buckskin horse. And he went down a little old draw there. He walked around the top of that waterfall, and that slick rock slid off and fell in there and just ended flat on his side and just crushed his skull in the.
Making any sound or anything.
There you are. We can hear you now, Benny.
I don't know. Yeah, I see it when I talk. I see it wiggling. Like the
line. He's getting that fixed. Let me see if I can do this. How do I do this? I gotta do this. There you go. I have fulfilled my obligation. Now it's just me and you, Otis.
Back in the store. Did we lose everybody?
I guess we did. Whoop, they're coming back. There's Benny.
There we go.
Yeah, there he is.
I don't know what happened.
I don't know.
Everything just quit.
That's cell phones for you.
Well,
I
they'd
think
heard
it
enough.
was because I was bad mouthing mules.
Well, I'm glad to know a regular sized guy. I thought he looked like he's about 1/16 of an inch tall on that other side.
No, he's bigger than that.
I have always preferred a good horse, and I've got a darn good mule. I've got an outstanding mule. But Brett, you remember my stick horse?
Yeah.
If I could get another stick horse, I'd be set. And he was a knucklehead too, so maybe that's why I got along with my mule. Stick.
Well,
I think Stick was 17 the last time he tried to buck me off.
of course, I was raised on a quarter horse ranch, and I've rode some really, really good horses. But I do like the mules up there in the nasty, rough
mule.
country.
People tell me about how sure-footed mules are and all of this, but I think it's more than that. I think the mule's looking after the mule first and foremost.
Yeah.
So I couldn't always get the mule to do what I wanted the mule to do.
Well, I think some of those horses, you get up in that rough country and they slip and they, whatever, they'll kill themselves trying to keep from falling down. And that mule just kind of let it happen and then get back up.
Lost him. You lost him. I rode a horse for 22 years, same horse. He just got old on me and died on me, and someone gave me a mule. And I think she was kind of crazy. And I think I think our bodies matched, and she does me real good. That's what you get for talking about mules, Benny.
Yeah.
I think my internet hangs up on me every time I badmouth the mule. I think Patsy must be in the
Brett hangs
backyard.
up on you.
Yeah, my mule's in the backyard pulling the cord.
Well, the only reason I got a mule is because someone gave it to me because I think they couldn't handle it. Maybe I don't know why. So
I was around mules, and I was around jerk mules. My wife grew up next door to Larry Mahan, and Larry's dad, Ray, had mules, and Ray and I ran around for a long time, and Ray he's always bragging about these little mules he had, but I never got to ride those little mules. He always had me on some knucklehead it was constant battling, and I got to hate mules, and it was Ray's fault. And so when I got a couple of hound pups to get started hunting again, Brian Jennings was over at Childs, Arizona on the Verde River, and he took my pups and started hunting them. And he knew I hated mules, and he had a real good mule, Edith. And we went to watch the dogs work one day over on Lancaster, and he put me on Edith. And he did that just to prove his point. But I got to thinking, if I could, it's harder and harder to find these good ranch geldings because the ranchers are getting knocked in the head from the Forest Service. So if I could find a good mule, maybe I'd have something.
Okay.
And of course, I'm a cheapskate.
Tell me, what's a good mule
that?
And what's a bad mule? Qualify it.
Yeah. They say there's only a good mule and bad mule. There's none in between.
No, I'm going to tell you what I believe. A quarter inch under the hairline of the best.
Here we go again. Surface. You're breaking up, Benny.
I don't know why.
No, I hear you. I'm hearing him.
Yeah, I just see that.
I think he's words so he don't say bad. He's talking about music.
I can see my
so much
my
fun
picture
right now.
My picture's frozen.
At the most opportune time, too.
Yeah, no.
We're not
no,
real
Benny,
sure
that is
what you're
not
talking
4
about.
inches. That's not 4 inches, Benny.
I think you got
Well, I don't know what to do about
I
that.
think you're exaggerating.
Right there. It froze. His picture's froze.
That's just crazy. But anyway, I got into some pretty bad, gnarly places in the Oregon mountains, and if I had been on my mule, I couldn't have gotten through it. But I was on my horse, and my horse got me through it. And it wasn't so much that I needed the animal to do what I wanted, not what the animal wanted.
Well,
Oh, you can.
I
Hot over here.
so you're saying that because you have so much more control over the horse than you do the mules you've rode. That's what makes them better.
Yes, in my view, yes, Brett. Because if a
So
mule doesn't want to
good
do
mule
something,
would do what you want. Would that be a good mule?
Well, I mean,
I guess if I ever saw one.
my jet mule is a pretty good mule.
No, and I get that. But, well, for instance, I was up in the Oregon Mountains. I was over there on Rob Cox's place, and I was by myself, me and the dogs, and we went up on this. The dogs were trailing along, and we got up on this little trail that wasn't big enough for a jackrabbit, and it went right up this ridge, and we were, if you're over there on the highway and you look over there on the Oregon Mountains, look to the south on the Oregon Mountains there's real big, round, slick rocks. You see that all the time, Brett.
Rabbit ears, yeah.
I was up there amongst that first layer of real round, slick rock.
You
And
know what
so,
your problem was? You were hunting lions in the wrong place.
well, there's lions there, Brett.
I know there's lions there, but
There ain't no wrong place to hunt a lion, is there?
that place is.
I was in a place like that a month ago.
Well, okay, so the rest of the story, I get up there and there's no place to go. There's absolutely no place to go. And it took me 3 hours to get there. And I didn't want to just back trail. So there was a little, that's a lot of granite country over there. And there was a little, kind of a little chute that went down off of this other side of that place I was. And it was full of oak leaves. It probably had 18 or 20 inches of wet oak leaves in it. And so I thought, I need to go down there and see. So I took my shaps off and I hung them on the saddle horn and lightened up my load. And I went down there and I got to looking around and I found an old dried out cow pie. I don't know, probably that cow turd was 25 years old. But if a cow could get up there, I could get down. So I go back up there and my horse isn't even tied. He's just standing there and the dogs are all scratched out beds underneath every bush. And when he saw me, he was so glad to see me. He started nickering, like, "Oh my gosh, I thought I was gonna die here." So I get a hold of a stick, and I get him down there, and now this little chute is it's on the hillside. It's just where the water runs off in this little granite chute deal, and I get down there, get him up on the edge, and get down to the end of the reins and go to tugging on him, and he won't come. And I finally scold him and jerk on him, and boy, he jumps. He almost lands on me, and so then I'm scurrying and trying to keep him from stepping on my, and he's sliding and trying to backpedal and trying not to crash. And we less steep place, and I get him gathered up, and his eyes are bugged out, and his nostrils are flaring, and he's breathing hard, and I'm wondering how I lived through that stage. And so then I let him calm down, and we, probably 3 or 4 minutes right there, and I get down to the end of the range, and here we go again. And we did that 4 times to get down off of there. And I'll guarantee you, I got 2 mules out here I've been feeding for 20 some years, and those mules would not have gone.
There you go. He's all froze up and everything, talking bad about mules.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Well,
whoever's
Brett,
whoever-
if I had put one of them shock collars on that mule, that would have been the end of me and the mule.
It would have got him off that mountain, though.
That's true.
Never say never.
What do you think, Mr. Lewellen? What do you think about mules and horses? What's your opinions?
Well, I had it when I was going to college. I bought a young horse and I rode him. That's the one I was talking about I'd had for all them years, and he fell off the waterfall there at the ranch at Dusty. And he was a horse you could do anything with. He would rein, he'd handle, he'd work a cow. You could hunt on him, pack him, do it. Just one of them kind of big buckskin horse. And then I wound up with a couple of killer mules one time from, oh goodness, I can't remember this guy's name, but there was a whole criminal family of them. I think they were, but
The Vaughns?
anyways, no. Anyway, no, he was, they had that racehorse farm there at south of Belen.
Uh-oh.
Anyway, the Pizza Hut guy owned that, whatever his name was. And anyway, I'll think this guy was supposed to be the horse trainer there. Anyway, he calls me one day, and he said, Otis, said, get your trailer and come over here. He said, I got 2 mules here, and I want you to get them out of here before they kill somebody or tear up some more of my stuff. So I go over there, and he's got these 2 mules, and those mules were bred to be racing mules. This was when the mule racing deal got big. And they were out of a mare that the guy that had over here at Sarah, Oklahoma, that had the big racehorse farm. He raised them. I think he had Easy Jet or one of them great horses, one of them great stud horses. Anyway, but he bred some fancy bred mare. I used to know the names on them horses, but anyway, he raised these 2 mules. One was a year older than the other, and they were going to win all these mule races. Well, they tore up about 3 mule farms and wound up over there at that place on the river there south of Belen. Anyway, I go get them, and they were really bad. I mean, I rode the sorrel mule. There was the sorrel mules were smaller. The big brown mule, big bay mule, and a sorrel. So I take after both of them, and they were so rank, run away, buck you off, try to do everything. They were really spoiled. I used to ride the little sorrel mule, or both of them, but I'd ride him with a lead rope tied on. When I got ready to get off of him, I'm hunting with Fletcher in these days too. I wanted to get off. I'd ride him up to a sapling and tie him while I'm still in the saddle. I'd tie him up short, and then I'd ride him around the sapling until I got him just cheeked up against the bark. And then I'd gather myself and jump as far as I could from him and get off. And then when I have to come back and get on him, if he'd unwound, I'd get a stick, whoop him, and chase him and make him wind up real tight. And I'd get up kind of my shoulder and stuff and swing up and get on him and ride him around it and unwind him and take off. I mean, they were bad. Anyway, but it's just amazing how tough you are, see. After the bad mule was gone, wore out. I mean, the Flash, we call this sorrel mule. We took him and a mule that Ron Boya had to the Albuquerque Fairgrounds to one of them big mule shows. And when we left there, we had 14 first place trophies and 3 buckles, I think. And I don't know, but that's my sorrel mule. We roped on him. He wins the heading and then he wins the heeling. He won the saddle horn pull. He won the calf rope and he won the breakaway. He run the trail horse. He won just about everything there that you could do. The kids rode him. I rode him. You know, they had a man and woman's couples ribbon roping. You know, we won that. And his greatest day in the arena, we had a jackpot at Bosque Farms. And of course, I've been riding him all the time then and roping on him. And I'd go over and practice. We had about 15 head of steer, something like that. There at Ron's arena, I furnished the cattle, and he kept a good arena and fed them. And sometimes we would run them cattle 4 or 5 times. He'd have some more boys come over heeling and stuff, and I'd head them. So he got used that much, if you can imagine. Now, you're a roper. You can imagine what it'd be like to run 60 head on one. Just run them off, catch them all. Anyway, they had a jackpot roping there one Saturday or Sunday, whatever it was, weekend. And I go over and enter, and there was some of them Benavides boys there, and they were being smart asses.
I remember them.
Yeah, and they were good ropers. But anyway,
Yes.
There were only a fool come to a damn roping on the jackass. Well, I roped with Ron. I had to rope with Ron. You know, he's my good friend, and it was his arena. So I roped with him. I'm heading. And then I roped with 3 of them young guys. Some of them I probably didn't even know their names, but some of them young hot dogs, boys that could really rope feet, you know. They didn't have a job or didn't own a horse, but they could really rope. Anyway, maybe all rode the same horse. I don't know what they did. But when the dust settled, me and the Flash, we won first, second, third, and tied ourselves for the fast go. We won every penny that was at that jackpot. And I run onto those boys over at Bosque Farms then that night at another, and asked the old man, he's an old guy, but he was older than me then. I wasn't. Right? How did I said, hey, and he said, no, the boys went over to Peralta. And I said, because that's why I knew they were there. I said, how'd they do? He said, oh, they come dragging in kind of long in the mouth. And I asked him how they did. And he said, some old son of a bitch on a jackass won all the money. But no, you know, and I gathered all those wild cattle for all those years on him. And, you know, he was unstoppable. He was an amazing.
Did you know the old saddle maker between Albuquerque and Bernalillo there, Mr. Mars?
I know who you're talking.
Irwin Mars.
Where did he live? You know, there was a younger guy come in there that lived right there, kind of on the middle of crossing something there at north of Glen.
No, he lived between Albuquerque and Bernalillo.
Oh, yes, I do. Yes, I do. He lived. Didn't he have did he have a riding stable up there, kind of one time?
Not that I know of. I know that, you know, he used to pack into the Gila Wilderness and stay for like a month at a time. He had a bunch of good mules, and he also did some racing.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, we roped. You know, we raced that flat too. I remember running the relay races at Ruidoso. Of course, I would run the middle leg all the time because I could do anything on him. They could run at me and hand me that bag, you know. And my mule didn't booger, and he could really run. And so somebody run the first leg, and when they're approaching, I just kind of start trotting off, and they'd hand me that, and they could hand you that bag. See, a lot of mules get boogered when they bag. So I'd grab that bag and I just lay down on him and just mooching to him, and he looked like a horse running. His old tail stretched out. I didn't trim him up like a. And when I'd come around to the guy that run the third leg, I'd holler at him before I got to him, and I'd say, "Go, go, go, go!" So they'd take off running their mule, and I'd overtake them on flash and hand them that bag. And I remember we won one of them deals at Mendoza. We won the Pony Express both days. And that one, the guy, the third leg far ahead, he stopped his mule and turned around and backed him across the finish line. But we put that much daylight on him. He was a Superman, that mule was.
What happened to him?
Oh, he killed himself. I guess he just finally, he tried to kill me there for, 10 years, 10, 12 years. Finally killed himself. No, we come in from hunting been over at Beaverhead elk hunting, and come in and we just wore out, and I just backed up to the corrals there and had them good corrals there at the ranch at Winston, at Dusty. And while we've been gone, pretty hunting for a while, had to use my corral. I had a sucker rod corrals there, and they were pretty narrow together. You could work calves in them. And where the little crowd now, if you go behind the squeeze chute, there was a clump of oats right there behind the squeeze chute that something had pooped out, some oat hay or something. And at a clump of oats, just real green, bright oats growed up there. And that mule I just come in from hunting, just backed up, dumped them in there and just went to bed, his whoop. I go out there next morning, he's laying there dead. And he got down, being a mule like a goat, he got down on his knees and turned his head sideways and stuck between them bars and grabbed that mouthful of oats. And then when he did, he tried to turn his head back straight.
Oh my God.
When it pinched, of course, he just lunged straight up, boy, and broke his neck.
I'll be
He fell through that mouthful of green oats in his mouth.
I'll be dang.
What a terrible way to lose him, because he wasn't that old then, but he was a monster. And pull a rope in two. I mean, I broke two loading cattle with him. Broke one of them at the saddle horn. Pulled it two at the saddle horn. He was. I mean, he could wrote a book, but he was. Ride him every day. You had to go get the wild cattle and ride him every day.
Tough.
Yeah. He was an amazing beast. But it took a long time to get him there. My mother-in-law could ride him. Kids.
What's that, Chris?
Got where he was really a handling mule. Kids could ride him in them gymkhanas and stuff.
I'd like to have a good one like that. I mean, the mules I ride are good for what I do, but I don't require a whole lot out of them, just, to kind of keep me safe and keep going, go where I want them to go. And that's about it.
That's like my little, she couldn't, she might poop around. She's dogs and she's gentle with me, and, you can lead her anywhere and ride her.
Guys, it's been almost 2 hours.
Good.
Time to call it a night, I think.
Boy, listen, the guys, I listened with you.
Yeah, my internet is horrible.
Yeah. Chris, kill a deer. Show us a picture. Or catch a lion.
Well, we got a deer season open.
Only getting every other word.
Mr. Lewellen, I sure appreciate it. I'm glad you figured it out. When I titled this, I said you were coming on, but you might need some help.
I'm only hearing every other word and catching some stuff, but it was good listening. I'm trying. It was good listening to those stories.
It was really good.
Well, anyway,
I'll come up and see you sometime, and we'll sit down and record it. So it's not so we hear all the words. That's what I don't like about doing this online is we just don't it's real jumpy. But I could sit down and
see
and listen to your stories, and do a little bit better asking questions.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, One of these days I'll show you what some really good looking dogs look like.
I need to see some.
I can brag. You know, I've had all the pups that I've raised out of by my Pancho dog. I've had one unsatisfied customer, and I looked at his trailing technique, and I said, "Well, I understand why that dog wouldn't hunt." And now, that's my brag deal. Is my dogs? I got some really good ones.
That's good.
You know.
Well, if you're going to come out here anytime this winter, holler at me. I'd like to just ride along with you and see how you do things.
I'll do it. I really intended to try to get by there last winter, but anyway, by the time I got through, and I just finally packed up one day and took off. I really wanted to go over and go and hang out with Mike a while and stuff, but I finally when I headed out, I just went to driving.
Well, holler at me. I'd like to do that.
I'll do it.
Yes, sir.
I'll do it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you. Guys,
nice
thank
to meet
you.
these other boys, too.
Yeah.
You bet. Good night.
Okay, good night. Okay, guys. Thanks for stopping by. Sorry about the audio and everything. That's the best we could do. So, thank you.